You're listening to Everything Out There with your host, Steve Stockton.
Hello, friends. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Steve Stockton here with you. Everything Out There on the Clyde Lewis Ground Zero Radio Network. Come to you this just a few days before Halloween is when this episode will air. So tonight we've got a special spooky treat for you. My good friend George Godfrey from Nova Scotia is going to join us, and he's going to tell us some ghost stories from his part of the world. George, come on in here. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad, Steve. And to the listening audience, I hope you're having a spooky night tonight. I hope this will send a few tingles up your spine like it did me. The first tale was when I was a boy in about 1968 in Spring Hill, a coal mining town. My dad worked in the coal mines, he used to. And this night they were away, and it was really hot in the house. And the house being an old shackle place, the windows and that were all warped shut. So, being the last one to go to bed at 1 a.m., I went up the stairs by myself in the dark, not afraid, just creeping up the stairs, stomp, stomp, stomp. And I got to the steps and I turned, went into my room and shut the door. And I had to put socks in the top of the door in order to keep the door from springing open during the night when anybody went down to the washroom. So I went into bed and it was sweltering hot. And I took off my undershirt, pulled off the sheet of the bed, and laid down on my left side and faced the wall. Now, this was 1 a.m. Now, as I went to close my eyes, I heard the stair door open. And then I heard steps coming up. And like I said, this is an old house. And the steps, you know, when a person's coming up the steps, and there was someone coming up the steps. They stopped at the top landing and they paused at each step. So you got the intention, they were pausing, like they were looking. And they got to the top step. And then the atmosphere dropped about 40 degrees from where that was into my room. And the steps went from there to my room, like footsteps to the door. And there was silent and silent. And then all of a sudden, the door blew open. And I mean with force. So we had heavy curtains on the window. They blew up in the air and came off the hooks, the old fiberglass curtains. If any of you are in your 60s or 70s, you remember these. They're not light. Anyway, that cold wind blew in and I was awake, but I was scared to death. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. And then I heard those steps. Step, step, step. And it stopped beside my bed, facing me. Because, you know, from the sound of the step, you can place them. And then all of a sudden, I had a really cold hand grab my right shoulder. And you could feel it right in the bone of your hand, right down your body. It just chilled you right through. And then I turned to look, and there was nothing there. And it just terrified me. Needless to say, I got up screaming. And at that point, it went away. But 3 weeks from that day, I went downstairs again in the dark alone, 8 or 9 years old, to go to the washroom. And at the bottom of the steps is our fridge. And the fridge is 10 to 12 feet high. Big old fridge. Looked over top of the fridge about two or 3 feet above the fridge, between the top of the fridge and the ceiling, was two very, very red eyes. And I don't know how eyes can look angry, but they didn't look happy. That was that experience. Years
Wow, now
later,
that's something else. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished with that one.
no, that one, yeah. And
Well,
I'll
did
tell
you
you,
ever? Is there any history of that house? Did you know? Did you ever find out anything? Had anybody died
well,
there? Was it a low
did you leave
burial
that
ground?
little blurb I put? Apparently, that area had been big farmland prior to where our houses are. Like there was 4 farmers, and there was 4 big farms. There was a farmer who died. My late mother told me. She said there was a farmer who died and was buried on the property somewhere, and that's kind of who I thought. But you got to understand, Steve.
Yeah.
Listen, when we think of ghosts, we think of us. We think of Europeans, but there's been time for 4 Pangeas. You know what Pangea is?
Yes, sir.
The supercontinent. Okay. There's time for 4 Pangeas. And for me, I'm tuned in. I can hear them. I can sometimes see them. And our idea of heaven and hell is wrong. Heaven ain't where we think it is. Hell ain't where we think it is, up or down. It's like we're in between 2 slices of saran wrap. And I mean that literally, because the membrane between us and the spirit world on either side is just tissue thin. And people who are tuned in, and that's why I think schizophrenics get a bad rap, because they're turning in like I can hear, but they can hear and see. Anyway, but they're
That's
all around
an
us.
amazing
They're,
theory, and I've heard that from so many people that the veil is very, very thin and getting thinner. It seems to be getting thinner
Mhm.
day by day.
Now, the other story is again Spring Hill, and it was my sister's house. Now, growing up, you were talking about how your grandmother had this, I tell you, was talking to you about all this stuff in your shows.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Mom taught us how to deal with spirits. I've forgotten a lot, but this other story is connected to this. Is my sister became a hairdresser, and she had a house up by one of the high schools, past the high school, and she called Mom and told her that her house is haunted, poltergeist, severe. So Mom got me to go up, and she told me what to do. And if you want to give this to your audience and tell them this is one of the ways to help them out, so that they have an avenue and they don't panic and they're lost for something to do. The first thing they do is, before you do anything, open every window, cover every mirror, and open every door. And then what I did that night was I waited until 1 o'clock in the morning, went to bed. And before I went to bed, you take and do a search of the basement and see that it's normal, like basement stuff, stuff lying all over the place. In Bonnie's case, my sister's place, there was an old table, beat up chairs, that kind of stuff, big as that. So there was that. And the living room area and kitchen were just typical. And then pictures, normal, stuff like that. And then you get upstairs, same thing, pictures, stuff. Okay, 1 a.m., I go up, go to bed, turn the lights off. And then there was this like a rumble or a thumble, rumbling noise. And there was no coolness like it was at my mother's house. But this, when I got up out of bed and came out of the room, every picture, you know how pictures are hung by string and they hang down. Well, all the pictures were hanging upside down and the string was pulled taut and the frame was pulled towards the ceiling. And that was every picture in there. And downstairs, furniture and everything was everywhere and like thrown all over the place. And that took a minute from the time I went to bed to the time I shut the lights off, and then bang, and it all happened at once. The big thing was in the basement. When I got to the basement, I went down those creaky old stairs, like I said, creak, 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 down you went. And then you went over and you seen that the whole basement was absolutely spotless clean, except for one thing that stood out. You looked at the table. Everything that had been pink cans, chairs, anything you can imagine, garbage, was piled up like an upside down pyramid on the table. And why that table didn't collapse, I don't know.
Wow, that's frightening. And it sounds like a typical poltergeist activity.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, you're a fan of Astorfest? Oh, this whole area, you're like, there's no place that isn't touched. You know what I mean?
I agree. And I've talked about that anywhere we live here in the United States, somebody has been there before, even before the indigenous people like you, Pangaea, Continental Drift, all that. I think it was all one landmass, and there have been people all over the place.
Well, they're finding tools in granite that are two 250 million years old. So like there was humans, what we not may not be exactly what we'd call human, but there was a life form, and I don't believe for a minute that the dinosaurs were on the earth 250, no, more than that, a billion years. And all they came to was the raptors. Now, mammals are a branch of the dinosaur. And in 65 million years, we're top of the food chain. Come on, like that, like line of reasoning. And if you go to any map, there's Africa, South America, there's all these civilizations that rise and fell, and we know nothing about it.
Yeah, I believe that is true.
You know, and I'll tell you, I've read a few books. I know, like I'm not saying I'm a know-it-all, but they had electricity. They may not had hydro, but they had chemical uh, reactions that caused electricity. So they had a way of cutting blocks, and that would Bolivia is a prime example. And the pyramids, you can see where the chisels on the pyramid, but then they show you these stock cuts in stone. And I think they knew about the frequency in those great big granite concrete, or not concrete, those big granite blocks that are in Tepe or Balka in Lebanon. But I'm wondering for a case. I want to tell you, those are the two at home. I want to tell you about Walmart where I worked.
Okay. A haunted Walmart. That sounds interesting.
Oh, you better believe that. And this is
I've heard of haunted grocery stores, haunted theaters, haunted schools, supposedly anywhere where people can gather, or even where they don't gather, it can be haunted either because something that's gone on there or something that's gone on the land. As Stephen King once wrote, the land is soured. And that's the way it is here in New England. I mean, you have stuff going back to the Revolutionary War and beyond, prehistory, where people have slain other people on this ground. You don't know what has gone on here in the past millennium.
Now you take that and you think of the ground around us, we're electromagnetic energy, right? Okay, the ground is some sort of recording device. When it when it records an instant in time, that means something significant took place, that it left a mark in the electromagnetic field of the earth on the planet we stand on. Like the the VHS tapes, the big tapes where tape on a tape.
Yes, sir.
Well, this what we're hearing, the stuff where you're not getting any response, but you're hearing, and that's what I heard the other night at a ghost hunt downtown in the old train station. They were tearing apart this old building and the train station and fixing it. And we heard violins, piano, a woman, and men. But it was like trying to hear something at a party. We heard the woman say "I," and that was clear, but the men were sort of muffled. So that's and they were static. They used one of those devices. No, like I know about devices and how you can hack into them, and you can't hack into these. So we heard something that took place. Now that there was an internment camp in Amherst during the war for Germans, and they made their own musical instruments. And we have one one of them at the Cumberland County Museum, the cello. And sure, they had a party. Why not? But I want to tell you about Walmart. And you can use this now, and you can use it at Christmas time because these stories occurred at Christmas. On Christmas Eve, when you go into Walmart's, or a standard Walmart, there's two sets of doors. From the outside, where there's slush and snow and a big storm going on. And then this big rubber mat, you step through the doors into this big area, hot, and there's a rubber mat. As soon as you step on that mat, you leave footprints because you're out in the snow. And
Yeah.
there's no way, unless you had a carpet laid out over the snow, that you could not leave a track on that inside mat. Okay? All right. Now I'm the 10th child. I'm the baby, but I'm the seventh son, whatever that entitles.
My
But I
grandmother talked about
noticed,
that, the seventh son, and then if you had seven sons, the seventh son of the seventh son would really have some powers.
yeah, well, I got something because mom's family is full of it. And she had a nephew who died, and he was one of these professional people who went around finding people's lost family members. And I don't have it to that extent, but there's something there. But getting back to Walmart.
Yes, sir.
Now, with me, I've I've had company ever since I was a child. Shadow figures always watching me. Have you had them, Steve?
I have experienced them before, not my whole life that I know of, but I've seen them most recently when I lived in just outside Portland, Oregon. I had one that came out of the laundry room through the kitchen and then out the wall. Not only I saw it, but my dog Mulder saw it, but it didn't seem to scare him. He watched it and wagged his tail at it, but I
Yeah.
didn't sense anything evil. And I talked to
Okay.
my landlord, and she was a widow, and she claimed that it was the spirit of her husband that had passed away tragically years before in a car accident. And she
Mm-hmm.
said he visits from time to time. She said
Mm-hmm.
anytime that happens, just tell him hello. She said he does like to play with the electronics. And sure enough, there were times that my TV or my stereo or things
Mm-hmm.
like that would come on in the middle of the night, and it would be on a different station or a different channel than what I'd had it on before. Or sometimes it would change itself, the volume, the channel. Had just some minor things there, but again, I didn't feel anything malevolent or evil about it, and I
No.
think it was. I think it was just the gentleman that used to live there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you, you remember the old power lights, lamps that they used to have before the new ones. They turn on. Well, that's what these ones do. But the old ones, whenever I went down a street, no matter what time of day, they would come on one after
It
the other.
sounds so familiar, and I've actually studied this. It's called what is it, slip or something like that? Street light interference phenomena,
Yeah.
and I've experienced that since I was a teenager. I could be driving by, and the lights would either come on or go off. Usually go off because it was be at night. And I thought, well, it's just the angle of my car headlights or something. But then I observed that if I went through the same area walking, the same lights would go out. I could knock out every one of them along the path that I was taking.
Jesus Christ, Steve, you and I are the same person.
I think we're related, George.
Oh, you don't know. You just, but and you want to thank Albert Einstein, quantum entanglement. We're all connected. But now I'll tell
I
you,
believe that. I believe every living thing, organism is connected in some way or another, and a lot of inanimate objects too.
Steve, like I watched your show a few times, but you have to be the nicest guy and the easiest guy to get along with,
Well, I
and
appreciate
you
that.
and the thing, uh, a lot of people like I don't talk to a lot of people because, like you notice, I'm a little excited. Well, it's not very often people will take and say yes, but
I feel a kinship to you, George. Just even in talking to you online, I knew that you were somebody that uh, kind of got me and understood these things that a lot of people either don't understand or just kind of poo-poo or just take for granted. But it's real, I'm telling you. And you know it as well as I do, and you've probably known it for longer than I have.
well, I've known this. My earliest memory is at 8 months old, and I see the old light at my mother's house over the hill. And that was just after I was born. But, Steve, I have a memory that I can't explain. You know the old hats the women used to wear, the old girls, and they looked like a marshmallow sitting on top of their head. And
Yep.
that's what I call them. And they were either white or black. Okay. I have a memory, and I'm in, I'm looking at these women sitting in a rectangular room, you know, chair one against the other, going around the square. And they were like sitting around me, but me wasn't sitting up. Me was flat on my back. And I was looking at it from that angle. And that's the one memory I can't understand.
That is rather strange.
Yeah. And do I believe in reincarnation? Yes. And I use physics to understand reincarnation. Entropy. If you read about entropy, energy is constant. No matter what you do to it, it's constant. Okay. And if you want to take and use this and help give people comfort. If they go into a building and they're going to buy, say, something simple, like a bunch of light bulbs, because the light bulb keeps burning out. Okay? All right. You got your light bulbs, all different sizes, all different shapes. Now, once that bulb burns out, what do? You put in a new bulb. Why? Because that energy is always there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you take us. We die. The energy doesn't go anywhere, and it goes in to the next light bulb.
Okay. I've never heard an analogy like that, but that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. Now, I was going to tell you about Walmart. Now, again, this was, like I said, it was in the middle of a snowstorm, December, Christmas Eve, and I always at that time, Steve, you wouldn't believe it, but I was 268 pounds. You see me now, I'm a shadow to what I used to be. So I was standing there. I was greeter / security, but they didn't train me for security, and they didn't pay me for security. But they blamed me when anything got stolen. But that's Walmart
Yeah.
store politics. But anyway, all my life I dealt with ghosts. Oh, here's a nice little fact I want to point in. Do you realize the reason ghosts have problems with doors and stuff is the simple fact is they don't realize yet that they're dead and
Yeah.
what it means to be a ghost. If they knew, they wouldn't have trouble with doors because they just go right through the walls. So it takes a time frame because when you die, there's no time. So there's something takes place that they realize, okay, we can go through here. But until that time, doors and ceilings and stuff, that's why you open the doors and windows to let them out.
That makes sense.
And another thing about I forgot to say about Bonnie's house, Mom told me to do. You might be able to understand this, but Mom told me to take. We had to have a lot of salt in hand and put it around the whole edge of the kitchen to the windows. Leave that bare, like don't put any salt there because you want them going out the window
Yeah.
and door, and you go up the stairs every place in the house, upstairs to the attic, down.
And my grandmother was a firm believer in that. She would put salt in every corner of every room.
Yeah, okay, then you understand that they had a purpose for that. So, okay, that was that. Now, I keep getting back to this one because this was this wasn't just a hand on a shoulder. In order to be a greeter at Walmart at that time of year, you had to dress up in heavy clothes, your winter gear. And
Yeah.
then when the door shut, you rose to the death, and then the doors open. And we had the doors, automatic doors, like every place. We also had security cameras all over the place and TVs in front. So if you're standing there and you can turn your back to the door and you can see in the TV monitors that somebody's come through the door. Okay. All right. Christmas Eve. I'm doing my duty. I'm standing there facing in the store, checking, make sure there was no shoplifters and people greeting them as they go in and out, wishing them Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever rocks their boat I get up. And anyway, so I noticed on many occasions I had the door open and close by themselves. And I knew what it was, and I just didn't want to tell the others that the place was haunted. But anyway, This night, this happened. Christmas Eve, big snowstorm. And I seen the doors open up, and I heard them behind me because they were just behind me. And I heard them open up, and I looked, and I seen in the TV screen, nobody there. Okay, then it's somebody else coming through. So I make way. So I went to turn, and as I turned, I noticed something interesting on that those big rubber mats. Steve, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
That-
Yes, I do.
You do? Okay. You know what I noticed?
What's that?
There was no footprints on the mats.
Uh,
You know what that means? Somebody came in.
Somebody came in that didn't leave footprints. It wasn't a corporeal being. So
No, but it gets better than that, Steve. I turned around back to where the entry is, like the entry side, like going into the store, the carpet onto where it turns to a panel or whatever, linoleum on the floor.
uh-huh.
I turned, and there on the carpet was prints beside me.
Oh, it didn't leave them on the rubber mat, but it left them
It
on the carpet.
gets
So
better
that's
than that, Steve.
okay. That's got my mind reeling here, George.
It's better than that, Steve. It wasn't human footprints.
Uh-oh. Oh, dare I ask what kind of footprints was it?
Hoofs.
Horse print. Wow, a horse hooves.
Horse hoofs.
I wouldn't have thought about that. Holy cow.
No. And Steve, they were staggered.
So does
You-
that mean there's more than one of them?
No, it means if it was a horse, it walked exactly like a person. That's
Yeah.
what it means when I
Okay.
tell you staggered.
Yeah.
Like, you know how we walk one foot ahead of the other? And
Yeah.
I went and I have size 12 feet, and I measured them out that the space in between each step is about the same as a person, not a horse
Boy, that
standing.
is puzzling. So it was a horse, which is normally a quadruped, but it was bipedal in its walking, or it had two legs,
Walking
or
to
some kind
the
of
end of the
horse
carpet
creature or
and
something.
then nothing.
Now, I don't know that they probably do, but I'm sure the Native Americans here, indigenous people, have some sort of creature that's half man, half horse. Does there something like that in Nova Scotia? Is there some sort of indigenous or First Nations people legend of a person or a cryptid or an entity like that?
Listen, Steve, we got to go back farther. Uh, you got to read up on the mound builders because they are like pre-Indian,
Uh-huh.
and we got to get past the idea that 40,000 years ago ain't going to cut it. There was a fort found in Peru that they found in the woods and the forest. Surprise, surprise! It's 250,000 years old. They in Florida, in one of the bogs, they found a skull of a man 100,000 years old. So the thing is, what was North America like during that time frame? I'm trying to figure out where the ice age covered, and a lot of things can be circumnavigated by the fact that underground heating, volcanoes, areas, hunter gatherers will go around bodies of water and form big civilizations, just like the farmers.
Okay.
Yep.
That
Now,
makes sense.
now, here's the other story about Walmart. Again, in the winter, friend of mine, Martina, she is the Photoshop manager. Now, protocol when you're working in the store, in any part of the store, I think this probably goes to all stores. You go in, and when you go to shut down for the night, you check that store out from top to bottom, make absolutely sure there's nobody there. Okay?
Mhm.
So you're checking and you're looking and you're looking. Nobody there. You look at every nook and cranny. Nobody. She came out. She told me, George, keep an eye on the Photoshop, which was in that lobby that I was telling you about where that mat is, rubber mat is, goes right in to the right when you go in. Anyway, so I was keeping an eye on the door and there was nothing there. She left, she went up, she came around, I turned, and she said, George, what's that woman doing there? And I turned around and I seen this woman. And Steve, it she was really fancy dressed. Like I had this really cool poncho, sort of a charcoal, like, uh, but you could see through it, Steve. And you could see she had a what I call a Beatles style haircut. You know what I'm talking? Soup bowl over
Yeah.
the head, really nice iron gray. But you could. It was like effervescent. You know when you take Enos and dump it into a water, and you
Mhm.
see it's shimmering, that kind of effect. And you could see through her. And Martina said, "What is she doing there?" And I said, didn't you check? And she said, yes. She said, you I said, I better go get Brian. He's one of the managers. And as I went to turn, she said, George, she's gone. The door didn't open. Like she had to push the door to get out because there's a set of doors and they were locked. But you can get out by just pushing on against them. But nothing happened.
Definitely a spirit of some sort.
Yes.
Now, I
Now,
want to back up just a second here. I want to ask you something. Now, the two-legged horse apparently there, it left prints on the carpet, but none on the rubber mat. Is there something about that rubber mat and the way the energy transference there? Like, if you're standing on, if you have rubber sole shoes, an electric fence won't get you as bad. And they say ghosts can't cross water. Maybe there's something to do with rubber there too that they can't.
it
Or they
could
didn't
very
check
well
the
be.
rubber.
Could
There's
very well be. But
something in
I'll
the
tell you,
makeup
Steve,
of that.
there was nothing to indicate that anything came through that point. The only thing that I got, the door open, like there's two sets of double doors on either side. So the two out, one goes in, one goes out on either side, and
Yeah.
one goes in, one goes out. So the doors came open. Nobody came in because I was looking at the TV monitors, and but when I went to turn, as you turn, that's when things happen.
Hmm. Yeah. It's always when you're looking the other way or see it just out of the corner of your eye.
And I've seen these shadow shapes for years. And you notice I stutter. That comes with the Asperger's and dyslexia because I don't think left and right. I'm 360 degrees
Yeah.
and I've got 10,000 things I'm trying to say at the same time.
That's another thing we share. I'm an aspie myself. And
Oh, you do?
also, here's another one. I wear size 12 shoes as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. But do you want to hear about my religious pigeon?
Sure. I'd love to.
Okay. I'm not holding you up.
No, not at all.
Okay. I'm a churchgoer and everybody is. But I seem to have a more grander view of what the Almighty is than what's written in the Bible. And the Bible said, and they tell you in the Bible, there's like, you just can't understand God. There's no way possible, because if He created all this, the multiverse and everything else, and the thing Stephen Hawking is wrong is that yes, there is a God, and He's outside the universe. And if you've seen pictures of the big brain, we're they say we're the children of God. What we are is connected to the subconscious of God. We're life forms searching for answers. And I think God is looking for answers through us by how we experience life and how we deal with things. And if you look in 10,000 different mirrors, that's the same thing. Okay. So we're all basically hooked up to God's super subconscious. And Albert Einstein said that, and Tesla said it, that they're hooked up. And I think we all are to some extent, and we're all have ESP.
Yeah,
There's no,
and I believe it's been educated out of us, or driven out of us with the foods that we eat, the stuff they put in our water, the chlorine and things like that. Chlorine calcifies the pineal gland, which is the
Mhm.
seat of the psychic power in the brain, based on what I've read. And
Well,
if that's calcified, it's covered over, and you lose those senses. And I think
well,
that's why
I
children
haven't,
are more
I
open
haven't
to
yet.
the paranormal.
Now, I want to tell you about my religion. Um, do you want me to tell you about the three people I helped?
Yes, sir. Please do.
Again, I'm not holding you up.
No, not at all. George, I've got 2 hours to fill here, so the more you can
Okay,
tell me, the better off we are.
okay. Well, I can tell you about all the UFOs I saw too, because Steve, I can't explain it. It's just
It's
like,
all connected, brother. But yes, anything you want to share, please do. My audience loves this sort of thing.
okay, years ago, oh, not that long. It was when I was working. So within the last 5 years, I I go out. Uh, well, let me rewind and tell you. In 2017, I tried to commit suicide. Now, I want you to tell Dave Politis, don't blame himself. Uh, and his son, because I know what point he was at, because I was at that point, that your mind snaps. The person, you're totally unoblivious to anything around you. You're not when they say you're not in your right mind. Go with that. You're in this big fog. And I went and took all my pills. Guess when, Steve? The 23rd of December. I took all my pills. Well, Steve, here I am.
Yeah, right before Christmas. Seasonal affective disorder, the holidays are a sad time, melancholy time for a lot of people.
Well, I've been battling for years to try and get my grade 12 uh, because I want to do better for my wife, and that's long and short. And being 67 years old with grade 7 is like I can't get an income. She can't walk, and I'm laid up now. But I needed the grade 12 to get a better job for better benefits. Okay. So I've been driving myself to get my grade 12. And I had two teachers, one in 2017. First, I had a math teacher. You'll get this, Steve. He was a nuclear physicist.
Uh,
And out of all the people that's gone through the school, he told me, and he said he'd been there for years. And he said, "You're the only one." He told me what he did. Like he told me he's a math teacher, but he's a nuclear physicist and he works for the federal government working on projects. I picked him up. No, actually, Steve, I got down on my knees, hands and knees, and I said, "I'm not worthy because this is who this is who that's my hero." And so I went and told him, wrote a book full of questions. Plus, whenever recess came along, I told him ideas, and I told him how I saw the atom, and he liked that. And about my idea that before the Big Bang there was dark energy and dark matter. And the way I see it all interplaying, think of a big ocean, that's dark matter. See the movement of the ocean, that's dark energy. And the lights and life in the ocean, that's the universe and the multiverse. Okay? That's all how it comes into play. And, but anyway, I told him that and I gave him some ideas. And then he got me to sign this thing for him because he wanted me, he was very, impressed with what I was saying. And Steve, he started coming to me and asking me questions about stuff he was working on and how I saw it in my head and how it worked out. And I would give him some ideas and he'd take and run with it. And 9 times out of 10, like they worked out. But the thing with dyslexics and Asperger's, we have fantastic answers, but there's a cost. They're very pricey. But when you put them into effect, you don't have to go back and do it again.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree.
Now he built me up to the highest. And I had the one that killed me and the one I tried to commit suicide over was my English teacher. And she was absolutely miserable. And it wasn't me, it was all the class. She just hated like people, like if you weren't in her clique, she didn't like you.
Yeah.
And then
One of those people that should have never been a teacher in the first place, I think.
well, I found out she hadn't been a teacher, she had been a nurse and she'd been fired. I can understand that. Then here not too long ago I went back and the science teacher, I was just getting ready to do the science and the science teacher come up. Now you imagine staying in a class with students all around, coming around, saying to a student, "I'm not going to teach you any more than I have to."
Sounds
So
like
that
some
killed.
teachers I've had.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so that killed it for me. But anyway, uh, after the suicide attempt, I had a voice when I that night. I had a voice say, "All right, you were leading, and see where it got you. Now you follow me." And I started listening to this voice, and uh, in the spring, we were out driving around, Maria and I, and it was on a Sunday. We went to down around Leicester, outside of Amherst, old road to Oxford. You go down, we got to Oxford, and that voice said, you should take a few pictures of the pond because it was sinking then. That they had a gypsum mine underneath one time, and it's all sinkholes around the town. Really brilliant planners in this town. Anyway, took pictures. And that voice said, it's getting late. You had a bite to eat. Let's get on the road. Take the Trans Canada. And I said to Marina, let's go down to Trans Canada. We'll head home. So we were going along, and not too long, we come to the entrance to the Spring Hill turnoff. Before we get to the turnoff, that voice said to me, "You know, George, you haven't been down Iron Bridge lately. You could get some really good shots down Iron Bridge, George." They weren't that, but they said you should get. Anyway, so we went up the part that goes up, and then we went down over this hill. And down over the hill was a bridge, and there in the middle of the bridge was this woman in distress, an old girl with dementia. And she thought she was in Debert, and that was about 60 or 70 miles past. And she was there. That was that one. I got her straightened away. Oh, I tried to look for somebody. I went in the middle of the woods, knocked on a door, and I wasn't exactly sure of the area. And somebody opened the door and said, "Oh, hello, George. What can we do to help you?"
How about that? That's
Yeah.
like some divine intervention there, brother.
Oh, all over the place. Okay. Now, this happened again, not like that, but there's a place out behind the border where the windmills are. And I go back there and I take pictures. I was going back there to take some pictures. And there, standing in the middle of that field was a woman, again, in distress. She was standing there by herself. I got out of the car and asked her, "Oh, and she told me all this, that, and the other." And I stood back and I crossed my arms and I told her, "Listen, you're a woman. You're strong, sturdy stuff. Just take this as a clean slate. You start from here and then make a new life for yourself. Just start anew. And then if hooking up with your past life becomes feasible at some point in the future, go with it." And then she stopped crying and she said thank you, and she stood there a while and left. Now, it was that summer I was out there again taking pictures out in the middle of the field, and this farmer drives by, and I come up to him because I wanted to ask permission, and he said, "I've been having the worst time with a woman I used to date, and you look familiar. I think you used to work with her." And he started unloading and telling me, the situation. And I said, "Well, I was support for him," and he appreciated it, and he got on his road and he left. That's the three interesting experiences.
Yeah. And again, that was just right place, right time. You were where you were supposed to be. No doubt about it.
hmm And the last thing was something that happened recently. My wife doesn't know about this one. I usually spend my time watching TV because there's not much else to do. And it was at the afternoon. She was at the radio station and volunteering. We both do. And but I was there watching. And Steve, this is what I told my minister, because in this they told me to talk to this minister. And Steve, they talk to us like we talk to each other,
Hmm.
and they talk to us, and we're just not aware they do it. And so all of a sudden, instead of sitting in your living room watching whatever, you're in the biggest classroom you can imagine. And there's two people beside each person. And the two people are not like our vision of an angel and a devil. No, they're two people. The only difference is they're very tall and they're standing by us. And there is desks every so often, big desks like a watchman or foreman or head teacher or whatever, head instructor sitting up and watching the progress all through this area. And it repeats itself. It's like looking in a bunch of double mirrors. But this went on, and every time all this stuff had this gossamer wing through it, like spider web through all of us, so that we're all interconnected. And they told me that we misunderstood our instructions about judgment, like, eternal damnation or go to heaven or hell. They said, what happens when you make a decision? That's when, like, and it's not like both sides. Yeah, I know. But anyway, uh, they're there and they information is given to you. Now, it's what you do with it. It's like there's two representations, good and evil, but that's not like it's just two people. And it's how you interpret is what you're judged on. And it's not judgment like damnation. They do, well, he did this. Well, that means X, Y, and Z. Like he'll advance, but at this pace and this pace because he did this and this and this. Not like eternal damnation on that. And, but the people like Hitler and Stalin and all those others that are out there, they get sent back to the beginning to redo it all over again. And I mean, right back to the primordial ooze.
Wow.
And and I never saw. I heard this one speaking to me, but I never see their face. They just talk to me, and they talk to each other, and they're talking to us. We just don't realize they're face to face with us, and they're talking to us, and they're giving us information. And one of the decisions we make is whatever, and yeah, to me that indicates that uh, reincarnation
Yeah.
keeps going because it's the same line, and at the end there is a heaven or nirvana. And Steve, in this area, there's no Muslims. Doesn't say anything about Muslims. Doesn't say anything about Christians. Doesn't say anything about Jews. Everybody
Hmm.
is in this classroom,
Yeah.
and I think there's those two that are feeding us the information, and they have this four-person that's sitting there to like weigh the benefits of each decision that we're making to see if we go to this slot, rat in a maze sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
It kind of reminds me of that Indigo Girls song. There's a line in there, how long till my soul gets it right? Like you mess
that's
up, you go
it.
back to the
That's
beginning. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go back to the beginning and start over again at the very
but
beginning.
the ones that get to go back are the ones that are incorruptible. You know what I mean? They're so bad. There's no possible way that they can advance.
Yeah.
And I think that's hell. That is the hell. They get to do the loop and they get to this point only to fail to go back.
Makes sense.
Now, have you got 2 hours, Steve?
Yeah, I've got another hour to go. If you've got stories to tell, things you want to talk about.
Yeah, well, I can tell you in that time I was telling you about the big triangle shape that went over Spring Hill,
Yeah,
and
you had some UFO encounters. I'd like to hear about those.
well, first off, Darth Vader wasn't back then, but I want to tell you the ship, the first one I saw, the big triangle ship, was thousands of feet long. But what happened? I went out one night. The dog was this was March of 1 year. And Mom said, take the dog out for a walk. It needs to go to the bathroom. No, it didn't. I went out and Steve, I'm compelled to look up. I look at the sky whenever, it like inborn in me. So I look up, and this night, just beautiful starlit night, crystal clear sky. And all of a sudden, like, you didn't hear anything. I saw this tip of this something come up over top of the house, mom and dad's house. And it's about 20 to 30 feet high. And between our house and the next one is 200 to 300 feet from our front porch to the next one. Okay. So that gives you an idea. When they tell you use your thumb, well, this doesn't just quite cover. Uh, the point came over, and it was like a big white part at first that came over, and then there was two black bars and two white bars, like a herringbone effect. Okay,
Yes.
all right. Again, there was no sound. It kept going, no sound, and you could walk from our house to the next house and keep up to it. Anyway, it kept going and it went over our house and it kept going. And as it was going over our house, the tail end spread out wide, 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 wide. Okay. So like Darth Vader's ship. Now, at some point, there was this big translucent dome, red, like a really, grungy looking, but it was big dome.
Mhm.
And that was the only light other than the two bars. I can't give you dimensions of the ship because, like, I knew the house was 30 feet high or 20 some feet high, and I had a CB antenna up there. And no, it was up higher than that. And the town is 666 feet high. Exactly 660 feet high.
Yeah, there's that number of the beast there.
Oh, yeah. Hell of a good time. Anyway, it kept going. And then I saw that and I followed it. And it was going towards outside of town. And it wasn't for quite a bit that the end of the ship got over to the next house. And by that time, like, the wide part was quite really wide, and I couldn't estimate how many streets it covered. Like, I knew it covered Queen Street, Main Street, Maple Street, and over the town. It was going in a specific flight pattern at an angle, and it flew over what we call the battery factory. And again, very slowly, and over, and it did something. It stopped, and out of that big red dome came this light. And I can't remember if it was a brilliant red or a brilliant white, but it came down, it stopped, and it was like it was turning. You know those lights on the helicopter that turn?
Yes,
Had
sir.
that. Okay. All right. There was that, and it covered that area. Whatever it was looking for, it stopped, and then it went on.
Huh.
It didn't go poof in a puff of smoke. Now, a few years went by. My second triangle was at Walmart. Came out of work, and it was 10:30 at night, and the moon was out. And I went out and I looked up at the moon, and I saw something very interesting. And I just stood there because this woman was coming, and she went and looked up, and she said, "Do you see that?" And I said, "Thank you. Yes, I do." And Steve, you remember that triangle shape?
Mhm.
Well, this was another triangle shape, only, those fighter jets that have those uh, look like big knitting needles with pitchforks and forks and stuff on the sticking out?
Yeah.
Well, that went from one side of the moon to the other.
Wow.
And then again, another triangle shape. And this one was more staggered, like it was a different structure. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was sort of like a pyramid. And the only reason I knew it was there is because of the photography. I know what things look like and what they're not supposed to do. This thing was black beyond compare
Mhm.
underneath.
That
And
sounds familiar. I'll tell you another story coming up, but go ahead and finish yours there.
but this drew like all the darkness into the front and it blocked out the stars. And the only reason I knew it was there is because this moonlight was making out the form of the ship. Now, here's a topic of conversation. Nova Scotia and New England is the flight path for the military Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
All the transit flights and all of that going over to Russia and this, that, and the other, right smack dab over top of it. Why didn't they say it? Or maybe they do and they're
Maybe
working
they
with
did,
somebody.
and they just quietly
Yeah.
don't mention it, or it's one of ours and not one of theirs, or it's who knows?
Yeah. Well, now that was those two. We were at a toll road one night at 1 a.m. and there was a typical UFO. That was the first time I saw a saucer shaped, and it had a like a grill underneath, like the white dish, and then there was an indentation to the dish that there was a light again that moved around. You could see the arm and that moving around, and it was white. And then there was uh, like a black iron or a black sectioned thing fitting over top of that, and it was sort of like a jigsaw puzzle, an elaborate jigsaw puzzle with a lot of the pieces missing. And then it ballooned up on the sides and then ballooned up again. And as it ballooned up, it ballooned in smaller and then again to the top, like regular cone saucer shaped UFO. And that was the first time I ever saw one. But it was standing about not even, it was over top of the pole and they didn't notice it. And this light was it was over the top of the lights and it was over top of this tree. And I can't tell you how tall the tree is because it was dark. But it was over there and it was sitting there for quite a while. And I went back there and there's nothing there for that to happen. But the most recent one was the one Marina and I saw, and it was those cigar shapes. And um, have you been to LA or do you know about LA, that intersection there?
Los Angeles.
No, here in the outside of Amherst. Just
Oh no, sir. I've never been to Nova Scotia, sadly.
well, if you look it up on YouTube, Google it, uh, Allac, New Brunswick, and they'll it. We were coming up with Trans Canada, and this would be on my right as I'm driving up, and I saw clouds in the distance. Oh, I keep leaving this one out, but I'll tell you these two is we got to just about halfway or three quarters of the way to Allac, and I saw two huge cigar shapes. I can't tell you um, how big they are, but I could tell you how long they were. They went right back to the horizon,
Wow.
and I don't know what that means in miles, but it's miles. And the one closest to me was huge. And the one I keep forgetting to tell people, I saw people, bipedal creatures. You know, when there's a thunder lightning storm, this was the August, and I got off work and I was heading home, and I saw this thunderstorm, and the sky was clearing, and you can see the anvil and the clouds billowing. You know what I mean, Steve?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. And according to my uncle, who was in the Air Force, who met Yuri Gagarin, by the way, little short fella, and my uncle's little short fella, and that's why they made all those capsules so small. Is the bigger person, the more equipment it takes to
Right.
push them around and keep them. Anyway, so that's that. Anyway, so you know that the top, the anvil, is 75,000 feet. And that's when the plateau hits. Now, in between, beautiful billowing clouds. But you've been to cities, Steve, right?
Yes, sir.
You've been those hallways that go between buildings,
Uh-huh.
huh?
The ones that go over the street. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. All right, picture this thundercloud. And there's what looks like a structure, and it's like a metal structure, and you can see where it fits together, and you can see where the indentation where the rivets go in. Okay, and it's sort of a like an off white, like it blends in with the clouds, but it's solid. In this structure are windows, huge, great big working windows, and they go right across into the other part of the cloud that you can't see because it's the thunderstorm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that hallway, there was tall bipedal creatures walking back and forth, just like we do when we walk anywhere. But I stopped the car, got out, I waved to them, you know, like what was I, about 5 or 6 miles or more? Steve, the odd thing is they stopped and waved.
Hmm.
And that big triangle shape I was telling you about,
Yeah.
uh, at that time on in the Oort cloud, there was an asteroid coming through, or a comet, and they estimated it was the size, 10 times the size of the Earth. And that's the core.
Mm.
Okay. So that puts it the size of Jupiter, and it's coming through the Oort cloud. That's like a battleship dragging minefields behind it. Okay. So that was definitely going to have an impact on us. It was going to knock everything, the planetary system here to ship because of the gravitational field.
Right.
Guess what, Steve? We're still here.
Yeah. So what happened?
Well, on your news one night, they were talking about this big Horkin comet that, for whatever reason, exploded
Kind of
in
like that
space.
movie a few years back where they knew the asteroid was headed for the Earth, it was going to destroy it, and they had to go and land people on it to blow it up.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's wrong on so many levels,
Yeah.
but they used nukes. But the thing with using nukes is you have dust and gravel coming into the atmosphere, and that's now radioactive. So that's not the starter. So you get, instead of comet impact, you have nuclear winter
Yeah.
all
That'd
over
be
the Earth.
worse.
Oh, yeah. But no, this thing, and I'll tell you, Steve, uh, I was watching that thing, the triangle I was telling you about, it with the pitchfork sort of effect.
Mhm.
It disappeared from the end of October until December, in this time frame, this thing suddenly went missing, and then it came back, but it changed its position so that it was parallel to the moon, up, side by
Yeah.
side, standing up, but I could still make out the shape because of the moon
Yeah.
and the fact that it was blocking out all the stars, and it was back.
Wow. Let me tell you my triangle story real quick. I lived and worked in Las Vegas for about 10 years, and I was a manager at one of the casinos. And one night, it was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I was taking one of my employees home, had to go south down Las Vegas Boulevard, past all the casinos and stuff toward Henderson, Nevada.
Mhm.
And at some point down there, once you get past those casinos, I can't remember the name of the one that's Mandalay Bay, I think, is down there.
Mhm.
But just past there, there was like a big power substation. And George,
Mhm.
hovered right over that was this huge, I mean, we're talking bigger than a football field triangle,
Mhm.
black,
Mhm.
just like you described. It was blacker than black. And the only reason I could see it was I could see the heavens and the star field behind it. It was so
Mhm.
black that, it's a dark sky out there. You can see a lot of stars and a lot of light, the Milky Way, even if you get far enough away from the light
Mhm.
pollution of Las Vegas. It was just hovering over this
Mhm.
power substation. And I said to my employee, I said, "Do you see that?" And then they did. We pulled over, got out and looked at it, just
Mhm.
hovering there, and probably watched it maybe 10, 15 seconds max. And all
Mhm.
of a sudden, it just wasn't there anymore. There were no lights, there were no sound,
Mhm.
just this triangle shape. Now, I don't know that it went up. I had the notion of upward movement, but it may have just winked out of existence. But it was
Mhm.
just there and then gone.
Gone.
And
Yeah.
I said I had the feeling that it went straight up out of sight, but it may have just winked out of existence. But again, you're not too far from Area 51, there where I was at. McCarran Airport, Las Vegas is just right there. Never heard anything about it in the news or
Mhm.
anything about it. But that was probably the closest encounter I've had, and it was a black triangle, just like you described.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of stuff that we're seeing now, I think a lot of it is ours.
Yeah,
And
it's hard to tell.
uh, and everybody talks about Roswell. Well, things have been happening before Roswell.
Mhm.
But there was a guy who wrote a book. He was a military guy who had control of that. I read it, and he went in the craft, and there was no engines. There was nothing. And but inside the crew quarters, like small people, and it wasn't built for us. It was built for people 3 feet tall. But inside, he said there was these coils that fit around your head, and they were connected by a band. Those electric plastic fiber, that optical fiber we got. Well, that's where that came from.
Okay.
Uh,
Alien
okay,
technology, and they make
okay,
lamps out of it.
yeah, made lamps out of it. But that hooked up to the ship. Now these beings, whatever they are, run on telekinesis and telepathy and ESP. So what powered that ship? They said all those inside the chips was computer chips. That's what we call them now. So that means there was something boosting their kinetic power in order to drive the ship, and that put the field around the ship.
Interesting. George, I need to take a mid-show break real quick. About 5 minutes here. I'm going to play a commercial and then play some music from Lee G. Hopefully, you can stick around. We'll be back right after this. Is that okay?
That's great.
Okay. 5 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Attention all Ground Zero fans. Aftermath.media is celebrating our 4-year anniversary with a spectacular deal just for you. For a limited time, you can get an Aftermath Premium yearly subscription for only $79. That's right, just $79 for a full year of exclusive content, ad-free listening, and premium features. Dive into a world of incredible stories, top-tier journalism, and the best in entertainment. Whether you're a longtime listener or new to Ground Zero, this is the perfect time to join the Aftermath family. Don't miss out on this amazing anniversary special. Visit Aftermath.media today and sign up for your Aftermath Premium Yearly subscription at just $79. But hurry, this offer won't last long. Celebrate with us and elevate your media experience to the next level. Aftermath.media, the ultimate resource for parapolitical and paranormal fans. Visit Aftermath.media and subscribe today. That's Aftermath.media.
And that's Lee G from First Floor Audio and The Calm Before the Storm. Steve Stockton here with you on the Clyde Lewis Ground Zero Radio Network. The show is Everything Out There. And Joining me for the other part of the show here, once again, this is George Godfrey from Nova Scotia. George, once again, sir, I want to thank you for being here with us tonight. You told us some amazing, amazing stories. I love the Walmart stories in particular. I'd never, in all my research and everything, I don't think I've ever heard one from Walmart. And you told not one, but two or three. And I have heard of a haunted Kmart, but that was years and years ago. They don't even exist anymore. But I bet you anything, that building where the Kmart used to be, I think it's a bowling alley now. I bet you it's haunted. All right. Can you hear me now, George?
Yep. There we go.
We're
Thank
back.
you.
And I just wanted to thank you for all these wonderful stories. I was just saying, I never heard any in all my research from Walmart. So I appreciate that. I didn't even know you had Walmart in Nova Scotia.
Oh yeah, all over the place. Listen, before I forget, somebody's telling me not to tell you.
Yeah.
You know that story of the tube shape, the cigar shape?
Uh-huh.
I pulled over, and guess where my camera was? It was
Probably at
sitting on.
home.
No, it was sitting on my wife's lap in the car. Now, I want you, if you reach out to Dave, everyone, Mr. Politis, I want you to get this message to him. I had the camera. All I had to do was pick it up and take pictures of it. It was right there above my head. Okay?
Mhm.
It stopped me. Said, don't take, you can tell the guy next to you, but don't take pictures.
Wow, so like a telepathic message there from
Oh,
whatever
very
this
powerful.
was controlling this thing, telling you no pictures, please.
Yeah. And if you notice his program, a lot of things, these people, they do things and they don't understand why they do these things. Truckers and all these different people, they're being told what to do. You remember kids watching those British puppet shows, Thunderbirds?
Yeah, the Thunderbirds are go.
Okay, we're that. We have controllers, and they're above us, and they're pulling the strings.
I
And
believe that with all my heart. We are. I've
and,
always said I feel like we're sea monkeys. We're somebody's project. We're alien ant farm, if you will. They're
and
observing
that's why
what
there's
we do.
been 4 Pangeas. Do you realize how many civilizations have been wiped out just because, oops, there was a lab mistake and we got to start all over?
Yeah, hit the reset button.
Yeah,
And brother, I tell you, the way things are looking now, I think we're headed toward another great reset. Maybe the final
well, I'll
reset.
tell you, uh, everybody is blaming Trump. But if you notice, it's in the atmosphere. You could cut it with a knife. That's tension. We're being drawn to a point, and there's people like you and I, and millions of others who are dyslexic and Asperger's. We are problem solvers. We
Mhm.
don't think of just the here and now. We think of 5, 6, 10 years down the road. My wife gets mad at me. You're thinking about burying yourself, and you haven't even thought. No, I think of every contingency, and that's the thing about us. We're here for a reason. We're not flukes. We're needed for something, and
I agree.
I have that experience, that religious experience. It taught me that something's coming, and we're going to be marked on it. And it's how we deal with each other to solve the problem.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And this isn't just like that song in the 70s, "Get the World to Drink and Get Everybody Harmony and Love."
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason for it because
I
there's
can buy
something
the world of
coming.
Coke.
Yeah, but there's something coming, and we need to get on the same page. And us fighting over skin color is ridiculous. And oh, I wanted to tell you, I have an idea for two things. I have an idea
Okay.
for a spacesuit, and I have an idea for a space engine. And I was talking to a guy. He was what is it? Some sort of town engineer from British Columbia. He's like he does their problem solving, and I told him about this idea about the alternating aider in the old cars.
Hmm.
Okay, all right. You know that cosmic radiation is positively charged hydrogen particles. Okay, and that's hitting us all the time. Okay, you make uh, a box-like structure with platinum and gold, and then you have a centerpiece that's like a copper and gold, or not copper, platinum and gold wiring or whatever over top of the center part. So it spins, but instead of gas, it's like fuel, petrol.
Hmm.
It's particles, space particles. So what drives your ship is the hydrogen, and it's sucked into this, and it drives it forward. There's more to it, but that's basically it. And
I get the gist of it. You're talking above my pay grade, but I do understand the basics there.
yeah, in other words, the ship doesn't move, space moves.
Yeah. Fascinating. And that kind of reminds me, there was a time in the early days of balloon technology, they thought, now they didn't put gravity into the equation, but they talked about the possibility of launching a hot air balloon straight up and to a single spot and just let it hang there. And then the earth would turn. And then when the balloon came down, they would be somewhere else, but they didn't take into account the gravitational pull that's just going to pull the balloon right along with it. But
Yeah,
that kind of what you're talking about, but a space age version of that. And
yeah,
I get it. I totally get it. And that's phenomenal.
but no, but anyway, um, those are about those are the biggies, and then there's generally the things that you can't. And I'm not like I don't know who these are, but I think they're not just aliens. I think they're multidimensional and interdimensional and transdimensional, and that's why there was a spaceship. I think you did a story of it in the old west. It hit a windmill, and I thought if it came this far and it was made of whatever, it wouldn't just break up because it hit a windmill.
Right.
No, it hit some other stuff in transit. And what people keep forgetting that in space there's an overabundance of dust.
Hmm.
I'm not talking planets, I'm talking dust. If you don't calculate that into the equation, that can screw you up. And that's another factor I had
The
for
space dust, those micrometeorites,
yeah,
they can go through a spaceship.
yeah. But I was working on an idea for another for a way to energize a spaceship is from that dust. Is that dust has a static charge to it, and I'll tell you, there's a phenomenal amount of power in space and build up in that dust, and when that discharges, that could take out a planet.
Yeah.
And it's like I can see a way around it to uh, channel it in and power ship and space stations and stuff like that. And I've got some ideas about how to get rid of the space junk. You know those balloon habitats they have on the space station right now?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you okay? Take and fill them up with a really thick, heavy styrofoam rubber type of gel. Big suckers.
Hmm.
And then you go and you take those drone technology, and then you match the speed and then you go behind them and let this stuff fall into it. So you're ramming into this thing, and then you get a send up a ship, take it, put it in the bigger pieces. And I got this app on my cell phone where, do you realize how many empty dispense rocket husks are in space?
There's a lot of stuff out there.
There's a lot. Well, this stuff could all be picked up with those robots, not the Candarm, but they have what is a half robot. And I forget the name they gave him, but he's on the space station, and all they need is for them to just reach out, grab it, put it in the cargo bay, and then close the cargo bay after they get a certain number, and then they can, the best option, ship it to the moon. Because if it crashes, it's the moon.
Yeah. That's some wonderful ideas you've got there, George.
And somebody told me I think too much. One year, no, this is just a couple of years ago, and I heard about this. And this happens all the time because it's the asteroids. There was one asteroid that went by, it was pure uranium. Okay. There was another asteroid, and it was huge. And there was another asteroid that was gold. One was diamond. One was platinum. And other rare elements in great big asteroid form. And I was telling them, and they said, "Well, it's impossible to mine." I said, "No, it isn't. All you have to do is get a couple of those great big hydrogen or peroxide tanks, and use it as a like under pressure and push it towards the moon, sort of like a gentle push, and then it collides into the moon. You can take and put it into a geosynchronous orbit right around the moon, so it doesn't go anywhere. And then you can mine it, or you can put it on the moon and mine it from there. It sounds impossible if you just take time to think. Well, there's a way around that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that could be like a new gold rush, but yet in space.
Yeah. And that's why there's people like us, you and I, and not just you and I. I'm not saying I'm the gift to everybody, but there's all kinds of us out there, and we can come up with answers. And I desperately
People that
wanted
can
to
think
win.
outside the box and don't necessarily see everything in black and white, or somebody says you can't do that. We say, well, why not? Let's find a way to do it.
Well, when they tell me I can't do something, I said, well, I can think of 100 different ways I can do it. And management and all my jobs were mad at me in all my jobs, and I didn't last long. You know why? The workers come to me and ask them to help them do something simple that to me is simple, and they would have to take and go get this equipment and do this, do that, and do that. But if you know your geometry and you know all about leverage, you know there's actually no work to anything that they wanted done. And so, somebody came up in one of these stories, philosophical stories. This big stone falls on the road, uh, like, and this guy walks away. Well, I can't deal with that. Well, what about digging away on the other side of the road so it falls down? Or what about setting fire around the stone, getting it hot enough, and then throwing cold water on it? Like, and they had a story on TV about this guy. I thought he was a fisherman, and he was on this boat, this oil rig, banded oil rig, for years, and before he was rescued. And and I thought, this can't be real. This must be a made up story, because he had the stuff there. He didn't have the food. He had to go fishing and that, but he had other stuff. He had glass. He had shiny metal. He could have reflected it off whatever, and he could have been rescued a lot quicker than he was. But they said he was there for years and he never thought. And it was a big oil, like an oil drilling rig. There had to be like freezer doors that were, shiny steel. You take the door off, and you tilt it so that the light hits it and it shines in somebody's eyes. So there's always a way to around a problem. You just got to think of it.
Yeah. George, you remind me of one of these people that you need to be somewhere like MIT in one of their think tanks.
Oh yeah,
That's what you
and
do is
I
just sit there and solve unique, oblique problems all day long.
Oh yeah, and there was a few times they had. Thank you for that, by the way. Um, I got grade 7, and I taught myself. But most of this is only common sense.
And yeah, a lot of it is, and that's just a rare commodity these days. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and uh, I'll tell you, like I told you about the 23rd yesterday, the anniversary of the bomb. I'll tell you, and I want like you want to put this out on the net or on your audience. The United States is great, will always be great, and it's nothing but great because of what it done for our little town in 1958 and 1956. They came to our aid. We're not north and south, east and west. We're Americans. We deal with things. We're family. We have family disputes. And everybody, you're great people. And you deserve the best because of the caringness of all of you. And I'm not saying whatever, political party, everybody's great. They're people.
Yeah,
And people can be really good and they can be really bad, but that's life, and that's what you're dealt with. But you
yeah,
got to understand just how good people are, and you guys are absolutely fantastic because you came and went down these dangerous mines that nobody else went into. We had to have the dragoman from all over the world to come to save our loved ones, and the United States stood by our side. And Great Britain was there. Prince Philip was there. He wanted to go down, and they kept him from going down in the mine because they didn't want him killed in the mine. But thank you to every American that's out there because I met them in '91, and you're all top notch. We're all related. We're all
well, I
family.
appreciate that, George, and we're all God's children, and we just sometimes you have to set aside your differences. Politically, I'm about as apolitical as you can get. To me, left wing, right wing, just two wings on the same dirty bird. I just want the best candidate.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, it's all that's what it's all about is helping one another and being in service to one another in stewardship, and then
Yes,
that's the
and
examples that the Bible teaches us.
that's why we're what we're here for. We're not here to suppress anybody. We're here to teach, to care for, to love, and to honor and respect.
Yeah, I
And
agree, 100%.
you you take and you learn from your mistakes and you go on from there. And from every mistake, it what you do if from now on is what makes you the person you are. I met, if you want to leave this on running, I met a man from Germany. He was a history professor. He he was very embarrassed of his history, and I said, "Don't be. There's there's nowhere on this planet where nobody has blood on their hands.
Yeah,
Doesn't have blood on their hands."
that's true.
I, I said, you can't. I said, if you look at history, it's all over the place. So you're no different than any place else. And I said, it. You learn from that, and you take and say, all right, what can we do with this? How can we make this better for the next generation? And that's what makes us people. We decide what's right and what's wrong. And then we go in our heart, what's right? How do we help each other to get ahead? Not how to hold somebody down, but how do we help each other to just get ahead? And like, don't forget about the past. It's part of us. They can learn from the past and use it.
Yeah. And like that old saying goes, those who don't remember the past are doomed to repeat it. And
Yeah.
that goes along with if you keep doing the same thing, getting the same results. That's the idea of lunacy. That if this
Oh, yeah.
doesn't work, you try something different until you get it right. And
Mm,
like you said, there's sometimes an unsolvable problem. There's probably hundreds of ways it could be solved. Just needs the right people, putting the right thought in the right frame of mind and the right intention. That's
mhm,
something you never hear about, our intentions. And they say the
mm.
road to hell is paved with good intentions, but intentions do count for something. There's
Oh,
good
they do.
evil in all
They
of
do.
us. And I say that to people, what's your intent? You know,
Mhm. Well, I want to wish everybody a pleasant night. I got to get going. Uh,
okay.
and I want to wish them a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year or whatever holiday season they're happen to celebrate. I wish you the very best, and I hope that each day is a blessing for everybody that's in your audience.
Well, George, again, I appreciate you being on here, everything out there on the Clyde Lewis Ground Zero Radio Network. And thank you, sir. You are a gentleman and truly a scholar, one of the most intelligent people I've ever met by far. And that's really saying something. My dad was a scientist at Oak Ridge National Laboratory.
Yeah, you were
He had a
saying
lot
that.
of friends that were,
Thank you.
PhDs, nuclear physicists, all kinds of gearheads and rocket heads there. But I would have liked to have seen you out there in those think tanks back in the day.
Oh, I'll tell you. You see, the thing is, everybody picks off field, but you see, my big hero is not Albert Einstein, not Tesla. It was Leonardo da Vinci because he drew everything together. He saw how everything fit together. And it's when I see things, everything's connected by spider web. And you just pull that spider web and it'll lead you to every direction where
Yeah, that's
everything is
clear.
connected.
That's that. It's all connected. Quantum entanglement, whatever you want to call it. It's again, I don't know any way other way to say it. Then it's all connected, and you
Yeah.
look at that the ley lines of the Earth's frequency.
Mm,
God is in the numbers. You look at numbers. You look at the
mm,
Fibonacci sequence. You look at the golden ratio. That's all by
mm.
design, by intelligent design. That didn't just happen. That's meant to
Here,
be that way.
during the Big Bang, you know your physics. In the Big Bang, two things form: antimatter and matter. All
Mhm.
right. Okay. You go on that premise. Okay, that's what the think tanks use. Antimatter and matter, equal amount. What happens? All the time, no universe. Why? Equal amount of matter, equal amount of antimatter. They cancel each other out,
Yeah.
right? That's what we're taught.
Stands to reason. That's what they teach us in schools. Yeah,
Okay.
you can't have
Why
one
are we
without
here?
the other. Hmm.
Why are we here? What happened to that other part of the antimatter? Where'd it go?
What's your theory on that?
I haven't. Well, that's where. Now, when I say divine intervention, there's beings out there that are trillions of years old,
Hmm.
and anything above even a couple of hundred years above us, we consider gods.
Yeah.
And I tried to mention this one time on a group on the Keck telescope, and I tried. This guy just didn't want to talk religion, and I said, "Okay, let's look at the facts." All right, if you use physics and evolution, and I spelled it out because you see it in your mind. You're starting at zero, and you're now. This is how I do photography. I see 360 degrees, and you know those protractors
Hmm.
we have as kids. Well, you're standing in the center, and every line that comes from you at an angle has its uh, form in reality. It is real, and everything in reality it follows a line of probability,
Oh.
and everything.
I just wanted to commend you on your photography. George he's good friends with me on Facebook. He's constantly sending me photos that he's taken. He has some of the most amazing photographs I've ever
So
seen.
thank you.
I'm reminded of Ansel Adams. I think that's kind of what you're doing. You're doing the zone method there, but your own version of it. And it's all stunning. You can take just something simple and make just a beautiful, beautiful image of it.
Well, thank you very much. I'm
sir.
blushing, because I uh, I think I'm all right. I'm adequate, but I see stuff in my work that stands out. Got it.
You see things differently, and you're able
Mm,
to paint that
and
with light on a photograph.
that's why it gives me the eye to see things that normal people don't see. And I'm not saying I'm Einstein or whatever, but I got the eye of the photographer, and I
Yeah.
know what to look for.
Yeah.
And
And you know how to capture it. That's the main thing.
yeah. Well, listen, Steve, thank you very
Yes,
much.
sir.
I appreciate that.
My pleasure, George, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of my audience. Thank you for joining us here. And on behalf of George and myself, everybody have a good night and wonderful holidays ahead, as George said. Be good to yourselves and one another. As for me and George, we'll see you a little further on down the trail. Just tell your animals we said hi. Good night, everybody.